Hello, we'll call to order the Dunn County Facilities Committee meeting at 5:03 in room 60 of the Government Center. So the next item of business is call of the roll. And so we are missing Supervisor Lyon and Supervisor Larry Bjork. I knew Barbara was going to be gone, but maybe Larry will come, but we do have quorum. All right, so item 3 is approval of the previous meeting minutes from July 16th, 2025. All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone have any questions or discussion of the minutes? Nope, okay. Seeing none, then we will call the question. So approval of the previous meeting minutes, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, so that passes unanimously. All right, so no public comment. Doesn't look like it. Item 5, items placed at the request of the chair. There is none, so that moves us to the staff and recreation reports. So Deb with the Fair and Fair Board. Don't forget your microphone.
Good evening. The fair is over, except for all of the back end work that I'm still working on, part of it. We had a successful fair. Exhibits were up. We had more commercial vendors this year than last year. We had an additional food vendor. We had rain on Wednesday, which kind of dampened the whole outlook on Wednesday. So that caused the races to be rained out on Thursday, but we were able to hold the grandstand on Thursday and Friday night. Great horse shows with the heat on Sunday, and the veterinarian that is assigned, we have to have an official appointed vet. And he was pretty adamant that we release the animals early, and it's not such a deal that the animals are better off at home than they are there, but it's the trailer ride and the extreme heat. So we released the animals at 11 o'clock after the Little Britches show. And then they were all on the way, but all the decorations and the market animals that were going to slaughter, they were there until probably 3 of the last loads went out. So we did have some animals on hand. And then the rest of the exhibits were all released at 4 on Sunday. So, but entertainment went on and the food went on and the rides, it was a little bit warm out there, but everything else went on as scheduled. So we had a very successful auction again. We grossed $310,916 on 55 heads. So not the record-breaking one from last year. I was down a little bit, but still we had a couple less animals. So I have the list. If anybody's interested in looking at it, I can share that information. But also tweaking our schedule for next year. We got that first draft of that tweaked, and we have some things in the works for next year. So moving ahead, if anybody has any questions.
Anyone have questions? I had a good time, like all the small animals. All right, thank you. So then we'll move on to the facilities and parks. Austin, thanks.
Come on. Okay, agenda tonight. Deb touched on the fair board stuff, facilities and parks, operations projects that we have upcoming that we've done, fleet, monthly financial reports, and then as an action item in the agenda for tonight, the 2026 budget approval. Dunn County Fair, from the facilities standpoint, we had a lot of positive feedback on being proactive. Ahead of the fair, the work that the guys put in there, the 2 weeks leading up to it, it was extremely smooth. 4 out of our 10 group of guys there, this was their first fair, and that first PM shift that myself and Seth worked, that was both of our first fairs on the first night. So that was a little intimidating, but just not knowing what might happen. But everything, you put in the work ahead of time, it became very smooth. So thank you to the guys and the team for how smooth it went, and a lot of positive feedback. Facilities and parks, I'd like to give a positive money savings. Part of that lowering expenses across facilities, helping Dunn County run greener and leaner. I'd like to give a money savings thing every month, and some months it may be small, and some months hopefully pretty big. So, and last month we talked about air freshener cost reduction. It costs us over $400 a month for all of our county air fresheners, and we were able. The exact numbers in your packet, but just going to a different style, we saved $937 or so dollars, $936.48, not even including the 2 or 4 C batteries that you need to operate, the ones that we currently do, and having the same exact size and amount that we currently have. So that was that's an easy switch and $1,000 saved. Things coming down the pipeline are all of these. Dan put me on a task of getting to the bottom of all of the probably hundreds of thermostats around this building. There's 8 wings and 3 levels. In our last meeting here, I think one of these was on heat, one of them was on fan, and one of them was on cool. None were on a schedule. Some were still on the date that these were installed back in 2018. So even allowing, without going too over the top and locking them down too bad in some of these conference rooms, there can be some money saved in after hours setbacks. And you plug $100,000 budget into calculating 10% savings, 8% savings, it's $8,000 to $10,000. So that's coming down the pipeline. I've done this whole level down here, and the common areas and hallways, foyers on the other 2 levels. But more of the cost savings will be in the winter. It's not hard to get this building down to 70 degrees at night in the summer, but in winter it's just as cold, if not colder at night than it is during the day. So that's coming down the pipeline as well. Work request is something that we're going to try to dive into this fall, more than we have so far. But I want to get on everybody's radar on a maintenance request, something that needs to be fixed versus somebody that'd like their walls to be gray versus tan. If we just painted that department last year or 2 years ago, or if it needs it because of damage. So, we don't have unlimited resources at facilities, so allocating our guys' time where we most can spend that time is what we're trying to accomplish with that. Projects this past month or upcoming, but we did cedar mulch applied to the east, north, and west flower beds. I'll get into a picture of that right after this. The goal was to get it looking great right before the picnic. And then the day before that, we got that done. We got many compliments on how smooth that day went. Judicial Center, the hot water system there has been real hard to get dialed in. Both of those guys that have worked at Judicial in the maintenance facility side of things are both under a year of employment with not much overlap between the group before them. So with how intricate that plumbing system and everything is, that was a very hard thing to get dialed in. And Brady, Ron, Todd have that. The maintenance requests on lack of hot water have been significantly less in July versus the whole rest of the summer so far. In the cooling system, our quarterly maintenance completed on the chiller system. A lot of the guys shadowed that contractor that came in, very specialized techniques and very specialized equipment in a chiller versus the HVAC system in this building. Of not many people do it, so that was a priceless opportunity to shadow him and make it run the most efficient it can. Little things to just keeping it less scaled up and having balancing that pH creates a better cooling efficiency than just not. Very small little tweaks can make a big difference on that system. And then at the Judicial Center, ordering tint for exterior windows to improve heating and cooling efficiency for some of those exterior offices. Caddy Woodlawn, if you haven't heard yet, we had windows vandalized in the White House and the log cabin, these 150-year-old glass pane glued in windows, all of them broken. We got them boarded up. That's definitely not, that's not the end goal, but to hopefully eliminate it from happening again without closing down the park and stuff like that is pretty new technology from Tacticam is 24/7 cellular, wireless, solar powered security cameras, only about $125 a piece. This is about $5,000 in damage in one-off things. They'll pay for themselves pretty quick. That with some $6 surveillance signs is the goal. And then we had another crew. We had another kind of concern come in on Zealy Park. And then I said, well, what's Zealy Park? And I asked our group, and barely any of our whole team has ever been there, but it's a Dunn County park. And I wondered why we didn't mow it. And I didn't know the backstory on it, if it was mowed, if it wasn't. Just that people were leaving needles and vandalizing and stuff down there. And there's a house right next to the park. And those individuals were concerned about this. So I sent Tim and Missy, our lawn crew, down there to, one, just bring the mowers and trimmers if it needed to be mowed, and two, see what they could find, see if it was something that had been neglected, or the neighbor next door has mowed it as just a pride thing, but they wanted some more presence there. And I said, well, if we mow it every week or couple weeks, one, that'll show a presence. Two, we should be doing it. And with us already doing these security cameras at Caddy Woodlawn, some of these at some of these parks, not much can be damaged. In some of these parks, very historic things can be damaged. The well at Caddy Woodlawn, some of these other monuments and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But those are the projects that we've been doing on these parks. Looking to do more this fall when we're slowing down on some of these other things to make improvements that we might not have been able to in a while. A coat of paint on a pavilion, new boards on a picnic table, stuff like that. The guys show a lot of pride in making those parks look great. So, and then last projects, the neighbors of Dunn County, they ordered 2 ovens a long time ago. They've been installed, and then 230 volt breakers. These are a little bit bigger power needing ovens. So A couple 230-volt breakers need to be installed, and they're getting installed this week or so. Okay. Just, these were in pretty bad disrepair, these mulch beds. And it smelled good, looked good, going with that cedar double ground mulch before the picnic. Monthly financial reports. So this is the facilities and parks through July of 25. Projected on the, we can go through this on an Excel level if you'd like to, but the facility side, we're sitting at 17,476 to the good. And then on the parks side through July, we're sitting through 10,690 to the good, putting our surplus right now through 7 months of 28,166. There's, through this, there's a little bit of a delay with when Mercedes plugs in Tim and Missy's hours at some of these parks, or if the guys do a big project like taking down that tree at Caddy Woodlawn, stuff like that. So depending on where it sits in the month, but normally by 2 to 3 weeks in, we have a real good idea. Right now, we're having the meeting on the second week of the month rather than the fourth, so we're a little less removed from July's numbers when we're talking about it on 8/13. So anything there, just let me know, and we'll get into the line by line items of the 2026 budget as we go through this. It's round 2 of the budget, and then the Fair Board financials for this year. That one is old, but the new one is printed with, I thought it was printed. Yeah, this 18,000 is not accurate. Where is it here? Financial reports. Okay. 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 We're sitting 45,450 to the negative for this year on that cost center. So I wanted to bring it up in this meeting before we got too far removed from us having the fair not that long ago here for the year. Any other questions on that we can go over? I might not have the answer to them right away, but I can always get the answer.
So we're just wondering, so is that with all the income already in, or where the? Oh,
45,450 to the negative. Sorry, it's on a low.
but all the numbers aren't in.
The
on
the
that.
numbers are projected in here with what we have outstanding for bills to bills coming in that we still need to pay. of everything that has been submitted.
Just trying to understand that. Is there less income coming in or something?
There, yeah, we had 84,000 in actuals for 2025 to date. And
We were budgeted 164. That's like.
we're
half.
budgeted 183 for 2025 for total revenue. Total expenses 188, and our year-to-date actuals for projections is 104 and 149.
So is this,
I don't.
yeah, so is there's maybe some revenue that hasn't hit yet, or is this the fairs, or is it what hits the county, or how does, I know that's a question.
So this is, sorry, can you do here? I got echo. So this is reflecting the data that is entered into our financial system for the county. So the fair finances should run through the county's financial system in order to do that. So this is the exact same, I know it's in Excel, but it's the same report that you get for any other committee that you see. So this is based on the end of July information that has been entered into the financial system. And then you do see the projections going forward. So those projections are based on historic costs. So we know there'll be additional bills coming in. Typically the revenues would have been, I believe, the intent is, or the historically the revenues would have already been received at this point. So so that is the information that we have, and that's why it's reported. So
So-
So is there more of a breakdown than that, or?
So I think, so obviously we run these reports and kind of went through that projection. As Austin, as you saw before, right, that number isn't right because we just went through that projection
Sure.
activity earlier. So I think what we can do in looking at that is to do a deeper dive into what does that look like? What does that look like historically, and get you some more information at the next meeting. Obviously, things can change between now and then as we do have projections. And I think doing, and as we have policies, new policies in there around cash handling and other things like that, I think our intent would be to do a dive into the kind of an internal audit of how all of those things are being managed. So if it'll work for you, that's something that we can put together and bring to the committee next month, obviously working with Deb to make sure that we have all of that information for you to be able to do that. We've looked a little bit in the past just on how the fair is related to the county. And that's vague. But we do know oversight happens with the facilities committee.
Yeah, so does the county make up that 45,000?
Yep. So that would come out of fund
Okay.
balance. That 45,000 comes out of fund balance.
Okay. And so is next year's budget?
It
we-
is,
part of-
you'll approve it here in a little
Okay,
bit.
so
Yep.
that will be part of, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Or not.
Just off the top of my head, I know there's $951 missing from sponsorship, so I'm not sure where that is, because that should have all been here by now, because we had over 10,000 in cash, or in, checks, but And then we had 12,000 in kind, which we don't count the in kind, but, so I know there's, right there's nine, I mean, that's a long ways from 45,000, but. So I know that number's not right off the top of my head, just looking at it.
So just looking at that, I mean, the public charges, is that like gate emissions only or what is public charges? Cause we're like only half of what we were budgeted. And that seems like a huge,
These are what is included in the
yeah, no, I can't read. Sorry.
These are what would be included in public charges.
So it's carnival, commercial, entry fees, donations. Yeah. Miscellaneous, yeah.
So, yeah, when you see public charges, we use that in generally, there's anything that starts with PCS, public charge for service. So any revenues that we have fees, you would call them, show up as public charges.
So that there, where do we get that from?
That's what I'm saying. We can get you that and we can get you what that looks like
Oh, okay.
historically. And that's why I say we can pull some of that information together for you along with, what does all that process look like and present it next time. So obviously, yes, I mean, as we look at if those projections come true, 40-some thousand out of the general fund, that's something that we need to discuss.
On the 2026 budget. So, no, go ahead.
Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Because that's another, I was curious, the windows at Patty Woodlawn, so will we be able to replace those or will they just be with new windows or like, does insurance cover that hopefully or?
I'm looking into different options. I pretty much have to reach out to the Historical Society a little bit there to see if we could put plexiglass in there that's really clear in some of those windows to keep them from breaking in the future, but we have to dig more into that.
Right. And I had one other question about, so are the thermostats all controlled centrally or by facility?
Told that you can.
Oh.
It would be a little easier than me going to hundreds of them, but also it's pretty intricate software and you don't want to mess it up.
So at Government Center here, it's not, we can't control the thermostats. It's just monitoring only. When the system was set up, it wasn't set up to do that, so.
The other buildings or?
Neighbors is all, that is all controlled by, I can centrally control it from the
Okay.
computer. We do have a computer at Judicial that does do it. It's on its own system. It's very antiquated, but there are parts of it that you can control from the computer.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Ron?
So if the air conditioning is working in this room, it's working throughout the whole building.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, in a sense, yes, I mean, the system is working right now, but the system is made up of like, I don't remember, there's like
Different
12
zones?
12 different zones
Okay.
throughout the building, and each zone has its own heat pump system. So when one zone goes out, we may lose like one or two wings of the building,
Uh-huh.
but nothing that goes wrong with the pumps or anything like that. Everything's working as it should. We don't have anything out right now. Everything's
Okay,
running great.
and I have one more question.
Yes,
Do you know all the parks in Dunn County? Yeah.
I've made it a point to get to as many as I can in the next few weeks, but I've made it all the way south and a little bit north. But some of these ones, trying to be smart about my time, and going up to Thatcher Park today wouldn't have been a good idea, being 45 minutes away, but
Oh, I drive by there a lot.
Yeah.
It seems like during the springtime, there's a lot of fishermen will camp out there. But yeah, it's one of the facilities that has a active bathroom, I know.
Thatcher's probably one of my favorites because it's just kind of a little slice of heaven. It's a really nice park.
Yeah,
And it's unfortunately really far away, but it is a very nice park.
is a 22-mile 4-day park for Dunn County Park?
Yes,
Nice.
yep, that's a county park as well. And that is something that actually did get vandalized last week, and the guys worked on, somebody painted a bunch of graffiti on the doors and inside the walls. So the guys repainted the doors to the restrooms, and we didn't have any paint at the time to do the interior walls, but we just spray painted some primer over the graffiti for now.
So you're gonna have to have more security cameras?
and hats off to the facilities guys. They aren't just vandalizing these parks. They're defecating all over the place in
Yeah.
these bathrooms and stuff. And these guys have never complained, never, they've put their head down and fixed it up, cleaned it up, done what they can. So I think this will deter a lot of that. A small expense. I mean, you think about two guys just repainting a bathroom for 4 hours, that's $500, yeah, $500, just like that. So at $5 a month per camera or something for this subscription, getting notifications right away is just having a $6 sign in the entrance to the park that says surveillanced. So we'll see how it goes, and can't hurt. So, okay, thank you.
I don't even know where to bring this up, but anyway, since you're visiting the parks, Russian Slough, that's one park that really needs some work done. It's a very busy park. I mean, you wouldn't think it would be, but there's so many people that use that place. And I get people asking me about when are we going to do something to that park. So if you do, it was kind of nice. I was going to ask you if you'd gotten out to any of the parks, but Russian Slough is one I think we really need to look at. And
I want to show you this to say that I'll show you I'm not filling you full of hot air. Okay. That I went up there on my goal to visit the parks, took my UTV up there with my buddy, said, hey, let's visit these two parks. Yeah, I needed, yes. And the one thing I saw is how many potholes were in the driveway. And there was a nice concrete picnic table that was,
I call them swimming pools, not even potholes.
Yeah.
I mean, when it rains, it's a lake.
and isn't this working? Anyways, I put it on the list for a schedule for Greg to get to that by 8:22. And in the text of our scheduled group chat, bring the box blade up there, bring the offset flail mower and a weed trimmer. And that is beautiful up there. It's low, the river's right there. It's slow moving. The kids are playing on the beach. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people use that to get in, out
100%.
on their kayaks. And I mean, it's just it's such a nice place, but it needs some, like I say, it's hard to get in there.
Half
So,
day fixes that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, just so it's on the radar. Okay, thanks.
Yep, figure. Go up there after 8:22, and that's our guarantee. Things are a priority if we make it one, so. Yep, nope. Yep, now Brady's gotta hold himself to it. Brady will be out there on a Sunday afternoon with the tractor. Okay. We good,
Yes. Any other questions? So item 7 is approval of 2026 facilities and parks budget. Can we get clarification first before we make a motion? Is that?
Yeah, he can.
Okay, so you can introduce. All right. Thank you, Austin.
so introducing the 2026 facilities and parks and fair budgets. Parks has its own cost center. I mean, it's got a bunch, all these do. But not much for changes. 31,000 less in wage variable applied. That's 760,000 is what, if we were staffed at 100% countywide, it's closer to 97. Okay, but that's where that reduction is. Everything else in here, this should have saved. Yeah, the charges to county fair budget around 10,000 instead of 1. Yep. That's around what we allocate for our time there on average. Historically, charges to NDC Central, that's our monthly billing for our manpower. Facilities guys over there, Transit Commission, doing all the lawns over there, Highway, the same thing. And then we just moved that charges to NDC Central out of this cost center below and put it back up where it's supposed to be. And then central transportation. This is our fleet, repair and maintenance on it, fuel, property insurance, no change for 2025 to 2026. Government center, I allocated, hopefully, we don't need more money, but we've been over on our budget in 2025 for our heating and lighting. So I added more of what I actually forecast for that. So it's not being blown, but hopefully with some energy savings, we look back at the end of the year and think that was a conservative estimate and we had some money savings. Maintenance contracts, the same thing, added closer to what we actually went through. And a few things, we dropped a little bit of money. Judicial Center, 3,000 more on maintenance contracts, just with the cost of what we have coming in. I don't, previously, I don't think we were getting chemicals for the chiller maybe as much as we should have been. So that stuff is 4,500 a barrel, something like that.
Yes.
And I think that, anyways, just, it adds up quick. So add a little bit of money there. Heat and lights, went to a little bit more of what it actually was hitting. And some things that we were saving money, drop that down a little bit to make a net zero change on Judicial Center for 2026 versus 2025. Even if we're putting in a new system, it wouldn't be installed till late 26, spring of 27, fall or spring. So our system's got to last and be maintained until then. Plan ops admin, I'm 50% allocated versus Scott was here 100%. Brady went into an operations supervisor role. We had a little bit of money savings on health insurance, dental, stuff like that with cost sharing between here and transit. That's all the white. Anything in white, it's above our realm of what we can actually plug in for hard numbers. Everything in yellow we can, but we also sit with Beata and go through what we forecast for man hours to get through the year. A little bit of a savings by the time we get all the way down to subtotaling below here. And that gets us through Dunn County facilities. On the facilities side, any questions on that?
So I guess since we're approved this 26 CIP budget, where does that fall? That doesn't fall into any of their,
Yeah, you can see that's another tab over on the side here. Austin just clicked on it, so you can see that CIP
okay.
budget there. So yeah, this is typically something we wouldn't present at this time. The whole process of department budget approval in
This is
committees
just the-
is
It's
kind of
just the
a
budget, not operations. Okay.
This is the proposed budget because it, obviously go to exec and go through multiple changes after the fact, but essentially looking to get that, when you make the motion, it's kind of that initial blessing of, yeah, looks good. So,
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe this again is outside the realm, but the geothermal, do we have to wait until next year to get bids, or can we can we move it, like, if we know what we're facing?
yeah, so, Austin and I have talked about this a little bit. We don't have, so it's hard to put something out to bid if we can't tell the people that are gonna bid on it that we're going to have the money
Okay.
to pay for it.
Yeah, fine.
So, the intent would be really November 13th.
Okay.
We will start working on moving forward with that. So obviously that CIP project, that that amount in there is like 9.5 million. And so that's a budgetary number, right? So we can't go over that number without bringing it back to the board, but we can go under. And so that's kind of a safe number as we go forward with that. And then as we get the bids and as we go, then once we get bids and once we get a number, that's when we'll come forward with the we call it the parameters resolution, but that's the borrowing parameters that the full board will approve. And so that's when you'll choose, that's when you are approving the actual amount that we are going to be borrowing and the rates and all of those sorts of things. Those are the parameters that we kind of put around it. So, so we budgeted 9.5, but there's no money until we actually borrow.
And we haven't heard if the Inflation Reduction Act is
So,
still in play or not.
so I do know, so the Inflation Reduction Act, I think more specifically, the benefits that we had talked about on that. So there is a slow ramp down of the benefit of that benefit as it relates to solar. Actually, projects that are done in 2026 would still qualify for that. There is no end to the benefits for geothermal. So geothermal will continue to have that benefit through, I think it's like 2032 or something like that was when the sunset of that happened. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, so we're in good shape as it relates to that in the geothermal world.
Any other?
Parks. All right. So not much has changed here except we needed to pull some savings from facilities over to parks on getting it actually where it should be on what it costs to maintain these. Starting with the rec park, 2025 adopted budget, 7125, brought that to 10, brought down heat and lights to 1200, had a little bit of savings here, but altogether, 2,500, 2,600 in cost increases there based on what I saw in 2025. And then county parks, anything charged to some of these smaller parks gets charged other than the monthly cost, gets charged to each individual parks, but the man hours and stuff gets charged to the county parks budget. And then we're able to drop a few of these down a little bit and have 2,500 in savings there. And yeah, that takes us through the parks. Any other questions here?
Does the lease come to facilities or does that stay at the county? Is that in the revenue?
That is that yellow revenue in the
Okay.
top there. That's the $7,500.
Yes. So this is talking point as well on the 12,915 would include the hockey lease. And there's more to come on that, but the Red Cedar Racing lease that's currently signed is 7,500.
So yeah, just, I mean, from a budget standpoint, as you're aware, we haven't been actualizing the hockey revenue. We're still working on that, but it's just not budgeted. But we've been working with Corporation Council and hockey, and so that's where we say more to come when we know more.
And that would be around $3,800 a year or so.
So where else are we getting revenue? That 27,000 something? What
That's tax revenue.
tax revenue? Like, what do you mean by tax revenue?
Levy.
They're not paying taxes. Oh, so that's levy?
Yeah.
Okay, I wish it said levy. Okay, got it.
The levy it offsets the expense,
Right.
right? So
And
we have to, it
it-
should be zero.
And once again, it's not all levy. Some of that is the sales tax revenue or the, yeah, but it's that discretionary funds that the county has.
And then that 35,000 in the Apex, Beata, that moved to 26. Sorry, line item 10.
Yeah, so that's a CapEx expense that was
Yep.
fund balance last year. There is no CapEx expense this year in the park, so
We'd move it
It's gone.
forward. It's gone?
it's gone.
Okay.
Well, from,
All right, other than that, not too many moving parts on the park side. All right, this goes through This just opened up the line items for the fair budget. This one this was put together before I came here, so who,
Deb, do
who
you have
put
any
this? Okay,
thoughts?
So there's not a lot of changes from previous years for this, and I have some supporting information I'd like to share with you guys and gals. Do you want to pass that down? I just pulled together some numbers of how other counties support county fairs in the state. I just thought that would be some good information for you to have. This is based off the 2024 annual report. As you know from previous conversations, within 30 days of the end of the year, I have to file reports with the state of Wisconsin on our fair. As you can see, counties support fairs in all different ways, but it's this kind of a listing of some of our neighbors and how they support the county fairs in their areas. The second piece of paper that I'm giving you is this fair coordinator manager. As you know, the position was eliminated in 2021. Paul Miller directed us to figure it out. So thank God I retired. And this is what I've been doing for the last 4 years. It's almost a part-time job. Our coordinator used to have between 12 and 1,300 hours that was allocated. She was a county LTE employee. Obviously, I'm getting older. I'm not going to do this forever. And I don't know that if anybody's dumb enough to volunteer all of this time, it is all year round. It's not just the week of the fair. And that's the biggest question I have always is, well, I suppose you're pretty busy. And it's like, yeah, all year round, but this is what the fair entails. I'm concerned. I think our board is concerned too about when I do retire and leave, who's going to take over some of these things. So I'm just throwing it out there to let you know everything that I coordinate and do for the fair. I combined a couple things because it was 50 some items, and then I combined a couple things to get it on one page. So most of the other fairs have paid positions, either a manager or a coordinator in the state of Wisconsin. And there's not very many of them that don't have it as a position, as a contracted position. There's quite a few of them that are contracted positions. They're not county employees, so therefore the overtime and all of that and benefits don't fall into place. Other than that, when we do our budget, we have to come up with zero at the end. So I always work backwards. I do the expenses first, and then I figure out, okay, so I'm going to guesstimate income. And that's how we arrive at that number. I worked really hard this year to find some new vendors. Like I saved over $6,000 on our sound company. We also, a new radio company, that was like $2,000 savings. I guess I was ahead of the game with Austin's leaf theory, trying to find places that I could eke some money out of the budget and not spend. But we're probably different than any other department in the county, is that we are so dependent on weather and the economy. If people don't have a lot of money, they don't come and they don't spend money at the fair. We feel that we're pretty reasonable, $5 a person to get in. We don't have a secure grounds, so we have people that come over the hill. They drive down that little thing, even though we put snow fence on it, they tear it down to get into the park from the development up there. We do the best we can is to monitor that and to try to control our entrance in and out of the grounds. I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of the other items, but
So do you think the revenues reasonable um,
If we have a good year, we can definitely do the 72,000 easily. I mean, but this year again, we had rain and we had extreme heat. On a couple days. We're so dependent on weather. Carnival, um, that, that was down. I did reduce that by 10 because it was down last year because of the, people just weren't spending the money. And we were down this year, but we were up from last year. So, commercial, we had more commercial vendors, entry fees that's pretty stagnant, stays pretty much the same.
so I'm just wondering, because I'm not exactly clear how this works, but wouldn't the county have aided in the amount of 19,563 in 2024 according to the actuals on this budget, maybe that we received earlier? Yeah,
Oh, at 24.
in 24.
Yes, they did.
So,
But because of the way that I have to run this and how the way I do it, it was picked up after the fact.
right. Mhm. Yeah,
So,
so,
so your position is a paid position or just
Heck
a,
no,
no,
it's just a voluntary position? And this is what you do
this is what I do.
and the fair doesn't pay for that position?
No. Not since 2021,
Okay.
when it was eliminated. Just thought you guys needed to know. But and I'm sure there's other things I do that I didn't even write down. And not that these guys don't help. I mean, Ron is out there, he was working in the hot weather and we, get together on a Saturday before the fair and haul stuff around. And the way we're set up is very labor intensive if we have to use the county workforce because a typical fair that has control of their grounds can store everything in the buildings that are needed. We can't because it's belongs to hockey, so everything has to be hauled from across the road and over, and so we're very labor intensive. But as a board, we've decided to take that on ourselves, and we work on a Saturday before before the Saturday, the week before the fair, and that's when we do all that hauling and haul gates and stuff. And then they come in on Monday when we take over, Brady and his crew and Austin. And then they help finish up whatever we didn't get moved.
and you all don't charge back the fare, or do you?
Yes,
Yes.
You do,
Yeah.
okay,
I pay their
Right.
benefits and their time.
okay.
Mhm. Yeah, if I'm too high or too low on this spreadsheet, just let me know, but that's the revenue. And then any expenses, slowly go down here on the stuff that's,
It would be on the contractual consulting service line under the general fund. The 32,000, that their wages and their salaries come out of there, their benefits that get charged to us. I also charge like that's where I put like the people that take care of the money um during the week of the fair or the 5 days of the fair. The two young people that I contract with that come and help us.
And then you pay hockey for rent or the water and the
Correct.
electricity during
Correct.
those weeks? And that comes out of the contractual, or is that separate that I'm
That
not?
comes under grounds. The water, heat and lights are under there.
They forget to shut the track lights off, we pay for it.
at the security group that I hire. The people that take the tickets at the gate. There's a lot of moving parts.
Well, I've heard some stories about someone fencing the park so people can't get in. But there is a time when you watch people drop people off at, at the gate on the south side of the deal. And then they go and they pay their $5. I'm saying it gotta be at least 200 to 300 people that don't pay. On an average
If not more.
or more. And that's revenue that we're missing. And I know not too many people care about what the fair does or what they do, but one of these days, the money's gonna matter. And we work hard to do what we do, and then here we gotta, oh, where do you come from? Can you walk to the gate to pay? You know, we done that before, where we had to escort them, but you can't catch everybody. But I think it's worth it to talk about building something that can secure that land, because people that sneak in could get hurt. And we don't want to be liable for people that can't crawl through a thicket fence and get what you call poison ivy and all that good stuff. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Yeah, or maybe a wristband system so we can, after they actually get in, we could still tell maybe something. But yeah, one of the biggest feedback that the facilities group got was that south end. And I think not on my shift, but on a different shift, they were escorting somebody in the gator back to the gate, 4 or 5 people to pay. You know, that's a hump. It's money.
I guess one thing is I was a little disappointed to hear about it after the fact. I mean, if I would have known, I would have had my guys looking around that area to kind of monitor it a little bit. I guess it's not something that really crossed my mind. Me working the day shift, a lot of times I'm not catching that type of stuff, but night shift is usually pretty slow, and it sounds like that's when a lot of it was happening. And you know, if had I known that it was an issue during the fair, we could have addressed it at that point. Obviously, there's not much I could do after the fact, but yeah, I was disappointed that we couldn't have made a difference in that.
And we tried. We have it fenced. We put a fence across there, but they tear it down, and like every day we're putting it back up because it's tore down, and it's snow fence, so it's nothing permanent that we can't lock. I mean,
It's 3 foot tall and
yeah,
yeah.
pretty easy to walk across and to get through.
So. All right, so I think that's the end of that budget. I did want to, so I handed you a large 11 by 17 piece of paper. So this is kind of your first little introduction into the priority-based budgeting work that we've been working on. So these are the programs that we identified that are related to the facilities department, facilities, parks, and obviously the fair. So it's a little bit of a breakdown, and it's just the departments that report to this committee. So those of you that are on other committees will see a similar breakdown. There's a total of 187 programs throughout the county. We were trying to be nice and not giving you the whole 187. But that will be something that we'll be talking about and working with a little bit in the budget workshop. So wanted to kind of take this as an advantage for you to look at this information, and this is really just a different way of looking at the same budget information. Little caveat. The numbers on this sheet are based on the adopted 2025 budget. Okay. So we did this work based on last year's information. But what is still useful in that the FTE, the amount of FTE that's assigned to the programs, the revenues, you can see it. And so you don't trust the numbers at 100%, but it gives you an idea of where those expenses are and how they relate to the personnel, the non-personnel expenses, and then the revenue. So you'll see that revenue doesn't add up, and so these are only the revenues that are not that discretionary county funding. That's why I'm going to use that term over and over again. I'm going to stop using the word levy because it's different. So, so that's really what that is. So you saw a little bit of that as Austin was going through the budget. So you can see that $351,000 that is related to the public building maintenance, right? That's a charge back to the neighbors. So what we've done here and as we kind of went through this project, our hope was to be able to kind of come up with a scoring and say, hey, these are the programs that we should really be looking at. We got a scoring out of that. It's terrible. So we're not even sharing it because my example of that is that it said one of our high cost, low impact services that we provide in the county is 911. And I looked at that and said, well, how does that make any sense? So, and it just came down to how that scoring and how different things were weighted, that it just didn't provide us the value that we were hoping to be able to say, hey, here's the bottom 20. Go look at these 20. It didn't work. So what we did is ask department heads to kind of fill in what is on this sheet is column K, L, and M. So these last three. And so these very much relate to some of the scoring that we did, where they would ask us to score the, do you make money, right? Or what was your revenue like? Is this a mandated service and who's impacted by that? So the system had you kind of pick a level of that, and that's the kind of scoring that just really didn't work out. So we kind of shifted that to ask department heads to provide us a narrative that helps explain how these things work. So you can see in the cost summary is something that kind of goes into, all right, so explain to me the $351,000, right? So that's kind of what it is. The revenue is the work done for the neighbors of Dunn County. So we receive money to be able to do that, and that money goes towards those expenses. And then you get into mandate. Almost every service that we provide in the county is mandated in some way, shape, or form. So there's a question of what is truly mandated. We were talking about this in the highway committee this morning. So the mandate for county highways is to provide passable roads. So what's a passable road? Is it a dirt path? Is it a new road? So just kind of getting into like, what is that true mandate that we have? So that's an area where staff are allowed to explain what type of mandate, what is the true things that you have to do. So as you can look into the mandate, as you look at parks, right? So there's no mandate that we have to have county parks, but a lot of the parks that we own, and we heard a little bit about the mandate, right? We have a historical park, right? Like you can't just bulldoze it, right? There's rules against some of those things. So it's not a mandate, but those are some of the things that are some of those restrictions that we have around those. So just to kind of bring those to light so that you have an understanding of what they are. So obviously you can see within facilities being more of an internal service, you don't see a lot of mandate, right? We don't have to have a facilities department, but the facility has to work, right? So it's kind of hard as you get into, is this mandated or is this not? There's a spectrum of what is mandated and what's not. And then that final column is to talk about who's served, how and why. And so that was like another question that was in the priority-based budgeting as we did this, is what percentage of the population is served? So if you think through the 187 different county services, and you're a department head and you say, who's served by this? Well, anybody can use it. I serve the entire population. So that's not a valuable piece of information. If everybody picks that, you're not getting any sort of differentiation. So, so I think that's part of how, and so we told department heads as they did their scoring, like, you can't just pick that one. And I think that also kind of threw off the scoring a little bit too. So take 911 as an example. 911 is a service that's available to everybody in the public. That doesn't mean that everybody's using it. I think the last time I called 911 was like 4 years ago, and it was an accident. Actually, I was working in IT. I was testing a new phone system to make sure 911 was working. But so, I mean, that's one of those things. So who's actually served by this service? I don't know of a way to score that, right? There's a way to write that down so that you have a true understanding of who is served by this particular service. So we can use, I think, parks and the fair are kind of great examples of that. Anybody can go to the fair. Anybody can go to any of our parks. So who's truly served by that? A little bit of that lands in the eyes of the beholder, right? Fair, probably have numbers, or we can do some math on the admissions divided by 5 to figure out how many people showed up, right? And that does give you kind of a population of who's served by that. But so this is what we've asked staff to do, is to kind of fill in a narrative of those 3 areas. So you can see that for these departments, but we'll also be talking about that more with the full 187 programs at the budget workshop. So more to come on that, but we just wanted to kind of get you into that and let you see. I think the big thing is, it's one thing to look at the budget and to find out how much money is spent on pencils. It's another thing to look at this program to say, hey, the Parks Department is a thing. I know Supervisor Prochnow is, you finally brought up the Russian slew, but but like, how much are we investing in parks, right? To really break that down and to say, all right, well, in our parks and recreation maintenance, we're allocating about $230,000 a year in order to maintain those parks. We have some limited revenue that comes from, you can see this number reflects hockey paying us. So, and a lot of that is personnel costs, but a little bit of extra. So if we want to invest more, that's kind of what it would look like, but it's got to come from somewhere. So that's the big thing, is looking at this from a program standpoint as opposed to a line item standpoint, saying, hey, facilities is buying this many pencils. Why are you buying pencils? You should be buying toilet paper. So,
Why are you building a wall?
right, right.
So can some of these, I mean, some of them maybe isn't how many people you're serving, but like how many parks do we have? And like, so what's the cost per park, or things, and how many employees are you serving in the county buildings?
Yeah, I think I think that's, as we get into that, like how can you explain that? And what it really comes down to is, so you look at this, there's no mandate for the fair. based on the budgetary numbers, it costs, in this budget, it was about $3,000 to provide the fair, and that serves the general public, the 4-H FFA. So now you have that, is that worth it question, right? When you look at that, it's not mandated, it doesn't cost that much, and it serves all of these people. So maybe that's something that's important. But I think that's something that each of you elected officials get to kind of wrestle with each of those programs to kind of make that determination about whether you think that's right or wrong. Or maybe we have to say, hey, you know what, for the parks, it seems like they're costing us a whole lot. A lot of these parks are served by different people. Can we charge an admission to Park X or something like that? Obviously, probably doesn't work for our parks, but how can we increase that revenue to decrease the amount of discretionary county funding that gets applied to those areas?
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna put options and ideas together for your review on what ideas might be on maybe getting camping back at some of these places to help out with supplemental revenue, as well as allow some stuff like that with an efficient way to actually manage it. So ideas will be coming down the pipeline for that.
So that's all I had from that, but more to come, and you still have to get a motion and whatnot.
The scoring that you're talking about, is that of all the county people that use these facilities, is that how you score it, or is that something else?
So there was a scoring as part of the system that we put together that had us say how much do you align. So we used the directional plan. How much does this service align with this directional plan? Was this service mandated? And it was like, I think it was a federal mandate, local state mandate, or no mandate. We're kind of like the three choices. Population served was entire population, over 50%, greater than 10%, or less than 10%. Were kind of the option that they had. And the software then came up with a grade for them. And that's something, once again, as we got those back, I didn't want to provide them to you and have you say, well, why did 911 score this? Because I didn't have an answer. I'm like, I don't know, it seems wrong to me. And so that's why we kind of left that out and went about the path of letting department heads kind of write a narrative related to those same questions so that you can build your own score in your own head about how you think that program is, how much value you place in that program.
Well, I think my scoring would be an F plus. You know, F plus. We're not, but we're still trying.
All right, any other questions? So someone want to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the 2026 facility and parks budget.
Do we need the fair?
And fair.
And fair.
Yeah,
Oh, it just
it's
says
not
facility
on
and
here,
parks.
but let's,
And fair, and fair
let's include that.
budgets.
All right, do we have a second?
I second it.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the 2026 facilities, parks, and fair budgets. Any other questions or discussion? All right, so all in favor of the approval of the 2026 facilities, parks, and fair budgets, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that passes. So then that goes to our budget workshop.
Yep.
All right, so there are no consideration of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. Our next meeting is back to the fourth Wednesday, September 24th at 5 p.m. Any other announcements? All right, so thank you all. We are adjourned at 6:22.